shims were installed over the weekend. I believe the installation process was fairly straightforward. There were some temporary shims in there just to make sure the fit up happened properly. They had to take those out. And then the shims themselves were just slipped into place and bolted into place, I think, within a couple of days. It was a relatively easy and straightforward process. Thank you all for coming out today. Some of the work happening during the closure will be to align traffic coming from the toll plaza onto the westbound deck of the new east span, which is where we are standing right now. Before we get there, just want to remind everyone that the Bay Bridge, the entire Bay Bridge, will be closing at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, August 28th, and the new east span and the rest of the bridge will be opening at 5 a.m. Tuesday, September 3rd. We urge strongly that the public use either call 511 or use 511.org for their transit planning, transportation planning for that weekend. The work that needs to continue, at least kind of the most noticeable items are they still need to be doing some work with a barrier rail along the bridge. There is some striping of the roadway that still needs to take place. There is some touch-up painting that is taking place predominantly on the suspension bridge. There's also here what we call the Oakland touchdown, the easternmost part of the bridge. They have to install a few more seismic joints, but those are really, and there's some electrical work that is still going on to make sure that all the roadway lighting is going to work properly once the bridge opens. Those are really kind of the major items that have to happen before the closure. During the closure, the work is going to be predominantly in two spots. The eastern end of the bridge, what we call the Oakland touchdown, that's where we are here. That work will entail grinding a new path from the toll plaza here onto the westbound deck, and then grinding a path from the eastbound deck onto 80 and heading into Oakland. Once they grind that new path, they have to pave. That paving then has to have some time to set and cure. Once that's taken place, then they will stripe it, and the striping then has to have time to dry. They will also be installing a drainage system here at the east end so that there's no pooling of water for when it rains. And they also need to move the barrier rail so that there's enough cars to get on and get off, enough room for cars to get on and get off. So that's primarily the work that's going to be happening here. At the other end of the bridge, the transition structure, the west end, where it connects into the tunnel, the work happening there is going to be primarily doing a little bit of paving there, a little bit of striping and moving of barrier rail. And I'll be able to show you a little bit more down there when we get there. The other key work that's going to be happening is they are going to be demolishing a section of the original westbound approach of the bridge. That's the only demolition that's taking place that weekend, and that is so that they can connect in the temporary connector for the bike path. And the bike path, we're still working out the logistics in terms of when exactly the bike path is going to be opening. We're hoping it's going to be same day, but we're still kind of determining, how much work has to take place on that. But that's pretty much the work that's going to be happening that weekend, connecting in the bridge at the east end, connecting in the bridge at the west end. Construction might disagree, but I don't think any of the work is particularly challenging. I think it's more time dependent than anything else. Probably the most challenging work is going to be demolishing that original section of the westbound deck to get it out of the way so we can connect in the temporary bike path connection. Everything else is predominantly paving, striping, and moving barrier rail.